And we're live. Sorry if I had a little bit of a delay there. Today, I thought I would do something a little bit different. So, I like doing firsts, so I like doing things a little bit different than I usually do. So, I don't know if someone's out there in chat land. How do I sound? Do I sound okay? Do I sound too quiet? I'm doing some recording for my brother's thing, and it had done a little bit of apparently the boom was up on my microphone. I don't know what that was about, but when I did my Dungeons and Dragons, no one had any problem with it. And I was talking to people last night over the mic; they didn't have a problem with it. So I don't know. That could be an OBS issue with the recording. So today's topic is story writing, which is kind of funny, given just how things have unfolded in the world with the Hollywood writer's strike, which I don't have very high regard for them or their ability to write, as we're seeing the things that are affected by the writing strike. There are a lot of projects that I personally do not care for. I think a lot of them are garbage. They're just propaganda. They're not actual artistic. They're not creative. They're not expressionful. They're just garbage sent out to make you follow whatever narrative the propaganda is leading you, whether it's one way or the other. So it's like, okay. And so I've been reading reading a lot of comic books lately. Star Wars, Batman. I have some others on the docket. I was reading some Batman and the Outsiders. A little bit of Spawn. Not a lot of Spawn, just a little bit. And something I note with a lot of these stories that make them absolutely fantastic is they don't try to expand or add more complications to the characters. And it sounds contradictory, but like a good writer with their characters, at least in my opinion, they can make the characters go through an experience, go through a arc, but still bring them back home. And I've talked about this before, where it's with the benefactor, where it's reinforcing a pre-existing, a pre-known idea or a pre-known principle. So I use the example of Batman, either the animated series or the 1960s with Adam West. Okay. At the start of the episode, Batman starts off with the premise and the idea that theft is wrong, murder is wrong, breaking the law is wrong. Okay, this is the premise. This is where he starts. And then when he encounters the villain of the episode, of course, they're doing one of these wrong things. And by the end of the episode, once Batman thwarts them, Batman is reinforced in his belief that these things are wrong, and that's why you shouldn't do them. Because if you do these bad things, eventually you get your comeuppance, and it kicks you in the ass. So that's like a really, really great storytelling method. I personally love it. I prefer that method. And so when I was reading some old comics, it's fascinating to see how they build up a change in the characters. But really, by the end of the story, the character remains the same. The character's just reinforced in their belief, and their principles and their ideology. And I don't see that type of writing being done anymore. Every bit of writing has to be about breaking down someone's personality, has to go down to breaking down things in society. Everything has to get broken down and then rebuilt anew. And that to me is just, it's not creative, especially when you see it everywhere. Now, I know some people disagree with me on that. They're like, oh no, it's not like that. Or, oh, what do you mean? That was a great story. It's like, okay, you can see it as a great story. But when you start dismantling that and start looking at it, it's like, oh, it's the exact same building blocks for 50 other stories that are the exact same way. And you could say, oh, well, what I am pushing for, what I'm advocating for is the same thing. It's just the same thing over and over again. When you break it down, it comes back to these pieces. Sure, that's a fair criticism. But to me, the more entertaining part of it is you're able to have more of this, I don't say more of the same story. You're able to have more circumstances and scenarios with the character everyone knows and loves. A conversation I had on the twit, more of someone trying to argue with me, was someone saying, oh, well, Superman in his first issue explains his powers. Because I said, oh, no, they don't. And they're like, literally, it's one page. It explains all of Superman's powers. Which, if you know anything about Superman, all of his powers aren't known immediately. But also, it was funny because the page he cited, it explained in summary what Superman's powers were. But it didn't go into all of them. And in fact, all it did was really like, here's the science of Superman's strength. Here's a guy who can leap tall buildings. Here's a guy who can run as fast as a locomotive. Okay. But it's heavily implied, and as you find in later issues, that's not all Superman can do, i.e. his X-ray vision, his super hearing, his freezing breath. So, when you fall in love with a character, when you see a character and you're like, I like that character, Indiana Jones. You're like, I like that character. He's a cool character. The great thing about Indiana Jones is that he doesn't change. In every single Indiana Jones, he's the exact same character. And that's because he doesn't change. All they do is come up with a more ridiculous scenario to throw him into. And that's what makes him appealing. That's what makes him attractive. That's why people love Indiana Jones. And I know some people are like, oh no, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, or The Last Crusade. That's here nor there. They're all great movies. So one of the things that I like to talk about, and one of the things I do with character creation, because I've been recently doing a lot of character creation, or fleshing out, not really creation, but fleshing out, is I've been doing, I have these characters for my Dungeons and Dragons game on Sundays, and when I have these characters, I've been trying to, these NPCs that I've been aiming to flush out, I'm like, okay, I have to flesh out these NPCs. I have to give them a personality. And usually when I look at a character, I kind of like develop a personality or a profile type for them. And once I develop their profile and their type, I can then start saying, okay, what type of adventures would this profile of a character be interesting on? So I'll give you my character Omen. He's an Ithorian. If you don't know what an Ithorian is, they're like slug people. You don't really need to know what their physical appearances are if you don't. You can Google search an Ithorian if you want. But effectively, they are a fragile species. They're physically fragile. Now, is that to say that all of them are? No. But they're typically predisposed to be fragile creatures, easily broken, easily hurt, injured. And so for this Omen character, I got inspired from looking at this image where it's an Ithorian looking through a barrel of a sniper rifle. And It's a modified sniper rifle because of how the Ithorian's head is. The Ithorian's head have like a hammerhead on top of a stalk. So it's like their neck protrudes past their chest. Okay? Past their chest. It goes out by about a foot. So imagine your neck is throwing your head out in front of you, like horizontally, and then a stalk comes out of your neck, extending like a second neck almost, extending your head up. And then your head is flat. And then you have these two eyeballs on the side of your flat head. And your brain sits comfortably inside your, in between both eyeballs. Okay, that's effectively what an Ithorian looks like. So you can imagine, I should note, on the side of their neck is where their mouth is. So they have to eat through either side. They actually can have two mouths, so they can eat from either side. But so with this biological design of the head, you can imagine using a sniper rifle would need some precarious work. So this artist had designed a sniper rifle for the Ithorian, where it had this extended scope on top of another extended scope on top of this other extended scope. So basically it's like a staircase on the sniper rifle, and each scope fed into a lower tiered scope that finally aligned with the barrel of the gun. And I got inspired by that. And I was like, okay, I want to make this guy a hunter. I want to make him a frontiersman, a ranger. And I thought, all right, what cool stories would this guy have? And from there, I decided, all right, well, he's had to have been to Kashyyyk. He's had to have been to Karelia, Dantooine, Yavin, maybe Endor. So it's like, all right, this guy, in my mind, he's been around. Okay, he's got some frontier experience. Okay. What kind of animal would he have? Well, I decided he would have a Roakui. They're like a velociraptor mixed with a Carnotaurus, if you know what either of those dinosaurs look like. They're a minor level of sentient. So they're somewhat intelligent, but or sentient. I want to say intelligent. They're somewhat sentient. And he has one as his pet. And these two are a double team, where one's the predator that hunts it down, and the other is the sniper. You know, like a hunter and a hound. So I started off with this, I saw an image, I got inspired, and then I began thinking, okay, what type of stories would this guy go on? Like, what would he experience on Kashyyyk? Well, Kashyyyk is a very dangerous planet, so he would need to have some form of protection. So I thought, okay, let's give him basically a dinosaur, a meat-eating carnivorous dinosaur. He could ride as a mount, but he could also, send in there to fight, and it could hold its own. It's not worried about dying or being hurt because it's a natural-born fighter. So now that he's got this animal, I just start thinking of what type of adventures would he go on. He's a frontiersman, so he's probably out looking to collect flowers, looking to find rock samples, trying to find different materials. Someone might hire him to go and rescue a lost villager or a lost scouting party. He's a frontiersman. He's a ranger. And he's got a very high-powered sniper rifle. So he is not particularly afraid of of monsters or creatures or people messing with him, because he can hold his own. And so what I'm going to do is I have a few of these stories. I'm not sure which one I want to read. I have a few. I might read them all. I don't know. But I have a few of these stories. I might be hesitant. Do I feel like being hesitant? That's a good question. Well, we'll see if what do you guys think? I don't see anyone in the chat, so I'm basically talking to myself right now. But it depends how I feel, because I have some writing here I have some of my writing here for Batman, Robin, Lucifer, and I'm thinking about it, since it's May 4th, I wanted to put that in the title here. Let me put that in there. May 4th edition. Maybe what I'll do. Oh, I can't change. Oh, that's okay. Oh, wait. All right. Changed it. All right. That's weird. All right. So maybe what I'll do is I'll bring up some of my Luke Skywalker writing. I didn't think about that. And I'm now like kicking myself in the ass, because it's like, hey, I should have thought of that. So let me see if I can find any of my Luke Skywalker writing. So I have tried several times to get some Star Wars role plays going. And I see some of my writing with, okay. Okay, I think I found one. All right. Okay. All right. So I think I have one or two that I could share that are Luke Skywalker. I'm just looking through them and get some ideas. I have some of these I've written with other people, so I don't want to grab some of my back and forth with them. I want to just do something that's mostly my writing, and then I'll stop there. Let's see. Okay. All right. I think I got a few of them. I got one that I was planning to do with a Mara Jade, and I have another that I was doing with a Ezra Bridger. So I think these will be some good ones. They don't really involve either character. They're basically just mostly from Luke's perspective. But I think it'll be interesting. So hopefully my writing won't put anyone to sleep. And let me see if let me roll a die if I do that. See which one I want to start with. Let's do, I have 2 Batman. Do I have, I want to say I have 2 Batman. Yeah, I have 2 Batman. I have one with the Batman and the Outsiders, And I have another with Batman and Robin with I would say my own spin on a villain. Okay. So, cat alarm. I'll be right back. Just gotta step over here. Hi, little kitten. That's a little kitten. Okay. All right. Had to let the cat in. All right. So we got 2. Okay. Let me find another Lucifer story here. As I'm looking at it. Well, maybe. I have another one here. This is from a while ago. All these are from a while ago. But I have another one here for Boba Fett. So maybe instead of doing a second Lucifer, I'll do a Boba Fett. Unless I can find a good Lucifer one. If I can find a good Lucifer one, I'll do a second Lucifer one. All right, I got Lucifer. Okay, all right, I think we got a few of these. That'll be good. I don't know how long it'll take me to read them. We'll find out. So, all right, we got Lucifer, Luke, and Batman. And then I'll throw in Boba Fett. So, let me write this down. So we got 1, Lucifer. 2, Batman. 3, Luke Skywalker. 4, Boba Fett. It's in chat here. And then I'm going to roll the die. 4. 2. 2 is Batman. All right, we're going to start off with Batman. All right. All right, well, got to decide which one I want to do. Let's start with this one. Let's jump in with this one. This one is Batman and the Outsiders. More so Batman and Halo. So, his gaze met the people standing in the dark streets of Gotham. Cars parked on either side of the narrow side street. The mover's car drove up, and 2 men entered into the back seats. One flopped down as the other spoke. "He drank too much. Thanks for the lift, brother." The vehicle drove off, but never arrived at its destination. At the warehouse, the cell phone of Richard Belcosia was found. The crime scene had 2 CSU vans and 3 police cars, creating a perimeter as detectives and uniformed officers conducted their search for any other clues. Detective Crispus Allen stood overlooking the parking lot as the CSU team began picking up the pieces they could. The thunderclap of his cape prompted Allen to jump from being startled. "You! I don't need your help." "That might be true, Detective Allen, but something about this isn't right." "Someone has been missing for 72 hours. They're probably dead is the likely outcome." "Yeah, something isn't right about this at all, Chief," Allen said, with a certain level of venom dripping from his lips. "Have you connected the disappearances with any other victim?" "Do I look like an amateur to you?" So far, I haven't found any connection with any of the other missing persons in our files. Batman then said, I need the cell phone. Alan replied, Heh, you can have it after the boys at the lab get the data off it, and after the prosecution nails this asshole. Batman then says, by then, how many other people will be dead? Alan turns to Batman. You're an arrogant son of a bitch, you know that? I may not be seasoned in Gotham, but I have hours in departments. And I don't play this game that you and the other detectives have going on. I'm not Bullock, Montoya, or Bard. I'm not here for political points, detective. I'm here because you can't do what I can. I'm going to track down this person, with or without your help. But I would much rather we work together. I only need the phone for 2 minutes. Batman stood in the shadow of the large CSU van, donning his black armor with his cape wrapped around his figure, opposite to Detective Allen, who was equal in size and stature for Batman. Allen's dark skin contrasted to Batman's exposed chin, indicating a white male, but with no other indication, as his eyes were concealed behind white lenses, and the rest of his body was covered in black. The two men squared off, Detective Allen looking ready to throw down with Batman, while the detective, that's Batman, remained stoic and unthreatening, allowing Crispus to make the first move. Crispus growled and said, you know what? Oh, wait, hold up. I think I skipped. Did I skip my work? Okay. No, I did not. Crispus growled and said, you know what? Turn around, put your hands on your back, or behind your back. Batman stared at him. No. Crispus pulled out his handcuffs and reached for Batman, swiftly finding himself pinned against the car by Batman. As Crispus struggled, Batman pulled the plastic bag with the cell phone out of his trench coat. I'll give this back. Batman released Allen and stepped back. Allen growled and reached for his gun, only to find that it wasn't there. Where? He looked at Batman. Where the fuck is my gun? Batman pulled the cell phone out to scan it with his sequencer and replied calmly, you left it in your car. Allen then said, are you spying on me? The Dark Knight replied, no. I saw it wasn't strapped to your belt or your rig. Logically, you left it in your car when you grabbed your badge and CSU kit. Once the download was done, he placed it back into the bag and handed it to Detective Allen. Don't force me to do this again. I'll let you know what I find out. Batman made his way back to Wayne Penthouse, landing on the outdoor balcony before walking to the elevator to descend down into the Batcave. His gaze did a quick sweep of the penthouse. The sound of cartoons echoed from the other room. What you got there, Doc? Explosives. I'm going to blast a wabbit. Batman thought to himself, Halo is home. Tatsu and Emily must be out. He tapped the elevator button and waited for it to beep as the doors to open up and he stepped inside and centered the combination to lower into the hidden Batcave beneath the penthouse that only the outsiders and the BatClan members knew existed. Walking over to the Bat computer, he began connecting the sequencer to the decryption processing. The computer immediately revealed the last application used, offering cell phone ping data, the course direction, and the information was 3 days old, but it was enough that Batman could work with it to map a route that Richard Belcosia took. If I could actually read. So that was the first introduction there. That was the first one that I did. I realized that a lot of these aren't formatted. Hi, cat. Hi. Hi. My cat likes to think that she's a parrot, so she likes to jump up on my shoulder. Hi. So I really didn't format these. I probably should do that better. Format them so that they are more accurately or better articulated over voice. Okay, so we started with Batman. Let me see if... No, I don't want to do this Batman story. Okay. So here is another one. This is my Batman and Robin story. So we have... You got this, sweetie. Her voice had a way of instilling confidence. We're proud of you, son. We'll be right behind you. His voice had a way of making you feel stronger than you really were. He leapt forward and out into the circus below, with his hands gripping the bar as it dragged him across the air, with his toes pointed out, before he threw them forward, and he jumped into the air to land on the other platform. Then John and Mary Grayson leapt out, grabbing hold of one another as they swung through the air, when the line snapped, and both fell to the ground. A boy was shattered that day. Tim's mother wrapped her arms around Tim's head, trying to protect him from the visuals of two human bodies broken on the ground. Jack wrapped his arms around Janet and pulled both of them out of the circus tent, away from the commotion. Tim, he heard his mother's voice. It was sweet and gentle. Tim, your father and I have to go on a long business trip. Mr. Wayne has agreed to take care of you while we're away. It will only be a month. We'll try to call at least once a day. He remembered that day she left, the last time he ever saw her. Hey, Tim, your father and I just landed in France. Hey, baby boy, we just arrived in Venezuela. How are you doing, Tim? It's a quiet night here in Havana. I just got this feeling and I wanted to talk to you. Timothy, if you see this video, I love you, she cried. Tim jumped up from his bed in a cold sweat before his eyes began to water. Mommy. Tears began to roll down his cheeks before he squeezed his eyes shut and crashed his face into the pillow to silence the sniffle. In the alleyways of Gotham Narrows, in the Brideshead district, 3 kids sat on crates. The 3 went through the money stolen from the nearby comic store. Randy was a blonde-haired kid with a sports jacket for the Gotham Rogues, a piercing through his ear, and a tattoo on his hand in the shape of a spider with fangs. Ping wore jeans and a black shirt with a rock band across the chest. His short black hair was cut into a bowl shape, while Lonnie's blonde hair was short, but contrasted well to his red gown, gold mask, and gold-colored necklace, and a belt with a large A on it. Lonnie chuckled and said, It is a good day when capitalism repays what's stolen from the poor. Ping then said, Yeah, I can buy a PlayStation with this money. Lonnie's gaze shifted to Ping and he growled, No, that's how the government tracks you. Small purchases. Distribute what we've earned today. Use this money to create allies in our war against corporations and capitalism. The 1% may have more money and they may walk over us like we're nobody. But we have far greater numbers than they do. Randy then said, Oh, come on, Lonnie. What harm does it do if we use this money to buy a sandwich? I'm hungry. It was then a voice spoke, approaching them from the darkness, as it was dressed in black. Oh my, I seem to be lost. I was trying to get back to the main road, and I can't seem to find Rising Street. Do any of you boys have a cell phone with a map on it I can look at? The woman was mature. Her shapely body and curves gave the impression she must have been a mother. Her black dress and white clergy collar made an impression on the boys as they looked at her. Lonnie stood up and said, Rising Street is 3 blocks that way. He pointed. Ping then said, And sorry, we don't have a phone. We're a bunch of broke street rats. Randy then said, Yeah, you shouldn't be around here at night. It's dangerous. Heh. She looked at the boys and frowned. I'm so sorry to hear that. You seem like such nice boys. If you don't have a home, How do you feed yourselves? Where do you sleep? The three boys looked around before Randy shrugged. Where do you think we sleep? In these alleys, lady. She shook her head and said, No, I won't allow that. Come with me. I'll give you a place to stay and something to eat. The boys perked up and jumped to their feet before approaching her eagerly. Food is nice. Lonnie paused before narrowing his eyes at the woman. Who are you? Why should we trust you? She turned to regard Lonnie, her disarming smile. The kids liken me to many names. Gabriel, Mary, Eve, but most of them just call me Mother. I live and work at the St. Carmine's church. Come along, you boys must be hungry. Meanwhile, Batman says, What is it you wanted to show me, Jim? And I did as you asked, Batman said, walking with Jim Gordon as they entered the back door to a drugstore. Batman's attention immediately shifted to the elephant in the room, a young boy between the ages of 13 to 16, triple lacerations around the throat. Gordon said, I figured this might be a little much for Robin to see. Batman nodded, agreeing before kneeling down to inspect the wounds. Yes, I've seen this kind of kill before. A gauntlet-shaped man-catcher. Jim seemed confused. We have that marked as some kind of garrote. Gordon pulled out his notepad to write it down. Gauntlet-shaped man-catcher, you say? Batman examined the boy's face. He was surprised. Gordon, surprised? Batman, yeah, he knew his killer. What's missing? Gordon, some drugs. We have the manager going over the list of inventory, but they didn't go after anything on the shelves. They went after what was in the pharmacy lockup. So far, for sure, he says they're missing 2 cases of fluoxetine, and Batman interrupted him and said, paroxetine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all SSRI drugs. Jim would nod. When Barbara and I were together, she was taking fluoxetine for her depression. All right, that's 2 down. 2 stories down. What's wrong, Kat? I think she wants me to read more. Do you want me to read more Batman? Is that what's going on here, Kitty? Is that what's going on here, Kitty? I'm not going to read more Batman. Sorry. I think that's all the Batman I'm going to read for now. And I don't know. Tell me in chat after I'm done reading these. Tell me which of the stories might sound interesting to you. Which ones do you think I should probably expand upon, add more detail to? All right, so we did Batman. So who should be next? 3. 1. I think that's Lucifer. Lucifer. All right. All right. Let me pull up Lucifer. All right. This is going to be... I'm going to try and edit this really quickly here, just so that's easier to read. My reading my work out loud is hard as it is. Okay. And I know some people feel uneasy whenever it comes to Lucifer. So this was an intro. I don't remember exactly the details of it, but I'll remember it as I read through it. The other 2 stories I've recently started writing. So this has been probably about 3 or 4 years since I've read or wrote this piece. So this will be different. I'm not quite sure what to expect as I read it. So it's got about a page and a half. And when I write, just as a awareness, when I write in like paragraphs. I don't do like double spaces or anything like that. So a lot of this is very dense, and it's meant to be read, not read out loud. So so here goes Lucifer. Maybe I should do this. Lucifer. 40 minutes. Let's do Lucifer. 40 minutes. All right. The nightclub, Shade, was bouncing with life, where a man and a woman were moving their bodies against each other, as the rhythm of the music bounced with techno beats and lasers flashing everywhere. The dark-haired man pulled out an artifact of intriguing value, a round vessel the size of a small ashtray. The woman looked at him and grinned. Mince? Your breath smells fine, darling. He grinned at her. It's not mince. Something rare, vintage that you can't get anywhere, or you can't get anymore from the open market. Try it. He opened the container and revealed a black charcoal powder. Careful. Give it a good sniff. She eyed him for a moment before reaching to a nearby table to grab a straw that she could tuck into her nostril to snort the powder. Immediately she felt the rush. Her body felt on fire, and her raging hormones wanted to fuck this guy right here and now. Whoa! What is it? It's really good. He licked her and said, It's purified sin, baby. From hell's ruin to your pleasure. He sniffed some of it, and immediately the two went off to have the best sex of their lives. Lucifer came to, walking the streets of New Orleans with his loyal servant, Gaudium. The imp had disguised himself to look like a small human boy with a skinny body that hid the lard of his impish form carried. Lucifer was not so casual, dressed in a gray business suit with a red clergy shirt that had a golden priest collar around his neck. Gaudium would comment, So, I know you don't want to talk about Avalon, but maybe what you need is a good bender to get over it. Find some companion to spend the night with, like a good old days in hell. Though I don't remember hell being like that. In fact, I remember a lot of starving. Do you remember starving in hell? I also remember the screaming. I remember the eating in heaven. I also remember sleeping back then. Lucifer stopped in the alleyway as he watched two people exit the nightclub, snickering and giggling, their hands groping each other as they tore clothing from one another, and moved behind a dumpster. Gaudium would scoff. People these days can't control themselves. Lucifer's gut instinct told him to venture closer, and as he did, he heard their growling and grunting as the container that intoxicated both of them laid on the ground. He reached down to pick up the container and examine it. Interesting. Someone has found a way to harvest sin. Sin? Fortune smiles on us. Take a hit of that and take the night off. The imp nodded a few times cheerfully. No, but I am curious whose ambitious plan it is to introduce sin to the mortal plane, in its harvested form. Gaudium took a look at the club and then around the dark alley. Could ask around. I know a few demons that retired around these parts, maybe a warlock or two. Lucifer waved Gaudium off. Tell me what you find out. Holding up the container, he listened to the werewolves fucking each other before moving down the alleyway to continue walking. He thought about Avalon. She was the opposite of sin. She was virtue, and virtue was poisonous to the creatures of hell. Yet all of them longed for it. like any sadist or masochist. Ahead of him, Lucifer came to a boardwalk with several groups of people outdoor cooking and taking shelter in the darkness as they smoked and drank. A few were talking about the new drug going around town. Sin, it was called, and its flavors ranged wider than the 7 sins, such as despair, anxiety, revenge, and arrogance. Lucifer would come stand on the boardwalk, overlooking the waters, with his reptilian-shaped amber eyes falling onto the depths below, the surface where he would get lost in his thoughts. So that was one of my Lucifer story ideas. I remember this one now. One of the things I probably should have like a warning note, like a content warning note maybe. When I write Lucifer, I really dive into the spirit of vertigo, where I am unapologetic. I really go for the throat. I don't mince words. I just am brutally honest, and I love the primal nature of it, the crudeness of it, and the recklessness of it, sort of. So, here it's like it's articulating people being animals, and they're giving into their sin, and they're diving headfirst into hell, basically. That is the type of writing I love to do, whether it's Swamp Thing or Lucifer, anything in Vertigo. I love doing that type of writing. And as I've brought up before in my Cypher Vertigo game, that I definitely deploy those elements in that game, where it's like, okay, here are crudeness, primal human nature, so murder, sex, hunger, the need to hunt. These are things that these are story elements that I love to introduce into stories, because they do break down people, and they give you some perspective as to how our society has evolved. And it's just fun to write those type of circumstances and see people in, say, the modern age react to something so primal and so savage. So that was my first Lucifer story. Let's see if I can find my second one. Here we are, my second one. This is another one that I don't remember. Well, I'll say I don't remember. I vaguely remember this one. Surprisingly, me and this person got quite a bit of writing in. I'll probably save this for later to finish reading the whole thing. But I had the introduction post, so I'll come out here and start reading it. It starts off, this post, I believe, starts off with a Bible verse. So let me see if I can translate this, because I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea how to read Bible verses. So I'm just going to wing this. If this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials, and to hold the unrighteous for punishment on the day of judgment. This is especially true of those who follow the corrupt desire of the flesh and despise authority. Bold and arrogant, they are not afraid to heap abuse on celestial beings. Peter 9:10, or 2:9-10. He sits on the sidewalk, struggling. His sign made of cardboard states, homeless, veteran, anything helps. God bless you. His skin, chalky, peeling at the scratches from his nails and the malnourishment. He shivered from the lack of nutrients for his muscles. He rocked his head slowly back and forth to lullaby the music in his ear as people walk by and ignore him. Tattered clothing of dirt, piss, and pollution that he couldn't clean. There were too many more important things than bodily cleanliness. His gaze was glazed, and when he looked to the sky, he thought he saw into infinity as large clouds filled the skies with a white aura and a beaming glow from behind them. God's messenger would come soon, and perhaps the angel of death would grant him mercy as he moved on. But he didn't want to die. But what was living? No home, no friends, no family. Surrounded by predators and stalked by vultures. No one cared about him. No one helped him. Everyone saw him as street garbage. His past fragmented as his future was foggy. His haze saw no end in sight to this torment. Was this hell? Can't be so. He still have one blessing left. He looked up and saw the sign of an angel. He felt stronger and faster. His mind raced and clarity came to him as he saw Lucifer approaching and smiled a toothless grin. I knew you'd come, sir. Could you spare some change? The clicking of dress shoes against the pavement fell in line with everyone else on the busy streets when his gaze fell upon the homeless man and his sign, dressed in a black clergy outfit with a white dress coat. Lucifer looked down upon the man and felt the aura of darkness about him. His charismatic aura rejuvenated the man's energy, reignite his spirit, and caused life to come back into the homeless man. Lucifer looked down upon the man and felt his stomach retch in disgust. You look to the skies for answers. You wonder if there is or isn't a God, and you fail to see the irony of it all. Had Lucifer any respect for this man, he may have kneeled and lowered himself to this creature's level for a moment of humility. But this man was a complete waste of his Father's grace, time, and energy, and even more of those things to Lucifer. You wonder if there's life beyond this? I have stood before men who have lost daughters, women who have lost purity. You're not a poor, unfortunate soul, a victim. You're a parasite to spread disease. The homeless man looked perplexed. What? What the fuck do you want, man? Look, I'll be honest. I just want some money to get some drugs. Is that what you want to hear? He began to rock a bit faster, fidgeting and looking around with paranoia rushing over him. He could hear chattering around him, the sound of insect wings flapping and mandibles clicking. The sudden light and halls of the city blocks. The sudden light and halls, I don't know what the halls is, of the city blocks began to fade and the darkness closed in around him. A dust storm of ash would close in towards him, and he looked to Lucifer with pleading eyes. What? Please, I'll do anything. Lucifer responded, what I want? As if you could indulge me from your declared gravesite. I want you to remember this moment. When the walls closed in and there was no escape, it will be painful, rightfully so. Lucifer observed the man as he reached to his belongings and pulled out his syringe filled with the powdered ash and quickly stuck it into his flesh to inject sin into his body. Back away, Satan! I ascend to the skies! His skin turned a pale, ghastly gray before his body collapsed to the ground and died. Lucifer, reaching down, he picked up the syringe and examined the contents with satisfaction. The homeless man would suffer no more in this world, but he would transform into that of a demon, truly inside him. That would be the last thought ever given to the man, as Lucifer continued to walk down with the sample of sin in hand. He would need to prepare a ritual to track its source. Rituals meant resources. Fortunate for Lucifer, New Orleans was bountiful in that department. So this was another continuation of that other story I had with Lucifer, where he's trying to figure out this thing about sin. and how it was able to be procured and made in this world, in the mortal plane. So I hope that was entertaining, even with my stuttering and stumbling. All right. And now that leaves Luke and Boba Fett on the docket. So let's... 1 is Luke, and 2 is Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Okay. Just double checking this, making sure it's not... Okay. All right. Let's... Can I make this bigger? Make the font... There we go. Okay. So let me do this. At 56. All right. The dune sea of Tatooine was blanketed with layers of sand as the pilot flew out into the shambled pieces of Jabba the Hutt's sail barge. Dressed in a tan robe and riding a junk heap of metal, the man fumbled and trampled into the sand with haste. He stumbled upon his scanner, beeping loudly and quickly. He began to dig with a large flat knife. He shoveled and dug, and to amazement, he found a yellow shoulder pad with a black skull painted upon it. No, it can't be. He groaned and slammed his fist into the sand helplessly. It had been a year since Boba Fett had died in the sand pit. Little did anyone know, the bounty hunter had returned, thanks to the help of Dengar. Boba took the death to operate under the radar. Only a few knew of his return, as Fett sought to out his rehabilitation and rearmament of equipment. But the bounty hunter was not out of practice, as the approaching vehicle had tripped a sensor Boba Fett placed in the area to pick up those who were scavenging upon it. Seeing this strange robed man, Fett's intrigue was piqued. He wore a full garb white robe with a steel of chrome finished visor. A turban wrapped around his head, leaving only a line-shaped screen visible to the man cursing at the sand. Fett was armed with a polearm, used for navigating the harsh terrain in the desert of Tatooine. "Hello, friend." Bubba spoke through a voice modulator that made him seem raspy, thanks to the microphone quality. "You're a long way from civilization out here." The bounty hunter wasn't afraid of the man. Such skill and wisdom made his confidence certain the scavenger was no threat. The scavenger looked to Fett like a stranger in the middle of nowhere, not afraid as most foreigners should have been. Boba Fett saw the orange tint and bright red scarring around his eyes. The man wasn't from Tatooine, rather from some place with volcanic activity and sand colored like clay. I was looking for someone, a bounty hunter. I was told I could find him here at these coordinates." The man spoke, displaying his age was probably a decade or two older than Fett. That visor looked out into the dune sea where the pit of Carcoon rested as a sinkhole in the ground. The man held up a shoulder pad with the Mandalorian skull symbol upon it. Fett took it into hand and analyzed it as the man spoke. "I needed his help, but it appears he is dead." Fett remained quiet, letting the man savor every moment of silence between them, like a droplet of water in the desert. With each second, Fett was weighing the options. Do you know of some other bounty hunter who could help me, my friend? Boba Fett looked at the piece of metal and then dropped it into the sand. It depends. What kind of job do you have, and how much are you willing to pay? The man suddenly rejuvenated with life. My daughter and wife. They were taken hostage by blood bandit marauders. I'm from Locke. The man pointed to the sky, where the red and yellow moons of Tatooine settled in the sky. Look there. Boba Fett's visor shifted to look at the sky and see the planet before looking at the man with silence. An intense gaze could be felt on the man, hotter than either sun in the sky. The man began patting himself and speaking. I have 2,000 credits. Boba Fett shifted quickly and began walking as he stated firmly, Forget it. I don't work for anything less than 10,000. 10,000? That's insane. The man was shocked and bewildered. Boba Fett would make sure to remind the man. At least 10,000. The man began to growl. It's a rescue job. Don't you have any humility or compassion? Fett stabbed his polearm into the sand and picked it up to stab it further along as he walked. Humility? Only before the divine. And compassion never did anything to feed a starving family. What you want done will take an army, or just 2 men. Fett explained, turning to the desperate man. The move wasn't out of drama or desire for work. Fett's turn to make the man was to give him an olive branch of kindness, an opportunity for the man to negotiate with reason. The man considered it and then asked, Who do you think you are? You love playing these games with people? Lives are at stake. That cold exterior of Boba Fett's outfit said everything, except one thing that was very important. The man saw it coming too, as Boba Fett's visor stared judgingly upon the man, as if to answer the challenge posed before him. I'm Boba Fett. The man nearly sunk at the realization and the sudden gravity that he was in the presence of the infamously dangerous predator. The scavenger hung his head and would yield. I can offer you 25,000, but you must make sure my wife and daughter are safely secured. Boba Fett would nod, agreeing, then stated, I don't move until I have the money. The man would growl, I can give you 10 now, and the rest when you have them returned. That is fair, as you do not work for less than 10,000. Boba Fett took a moment to consider the price and then nodded. Very well, mister. What do I call you? Call me Warriv. Warriv, Fett repeated the man's name. Blood bandit marauders, you said. This datapad will have the banking information. Once I've confirmed the transfer, I will update you on my progress. Farewell, friend. Boba Fett handed the man a datapad and then began walking towards a dewback over the hill. Fett rode the creature back to his humble little desert house. With adobe walls, the trip took only minutes, and upon arriving, he went to the HoloNet terminal to begin his search. Transmit message to Dengar. Dengar, we have work. Meet me at 843-23 minus 601-1200 local. I need a ship. Transmitting the message and coordinates, Dengar would find the location was Mos Eisley Cantina, a back entrance to avoid attention from unwanted peeping toms. Fett then began preparing his contacts in Mos Eisley to secure a meeting location, as well weaponry to purchase. He then moved to get his weapons and armor ready. It would be at least a day or two before Dengar would receive the message and arrive. So, Fett had some time to prepare and wait for the credits to come in. Fett saw his account filled with 175,000 credits, a lifetime of savings, a reminder to Fett that he didn't need to bounty hunt. He did it because it was in his blood, as a Mandalorian, to stalk and hunt prey. To hunt for money was a facade that no one would second guess. Boba Fett preferred working with like-minded individuals, driven by passion and not greed. For that reason, Boba Fett had learned to admire Dengar, a mercenary and bounty hunter, the man who worked for money, but his motives were deeper than that. Fett would just assume burn the cash if it prohibited him from hunting. For now, the predator was patient and was now ready to strike. So that was my Boba Fett story. The introduction to my Boba Fett story. I'm kind of sad I never really got to continue on that story because I had fun with that. I love writing Boba Fett, and when I can team up with Dengar, that's fantastic time. I love that. That's great. That took me about 10 minutes to read. A little under 10 minutes. Well, maybe about 10 minutes. I don't know. All right. So that leaves Luke Skywalker last but not least. Which one do I want to read, though? I have Mara Jade and I have Ezra. Let's do, I'll do Ezra first. Because I think is that a smaller post? Yeah, I think that's a smaller post. Or maybe it's a little bit longer. I don't know. We'll find out. So I'll do Ezra. Bastion, Imperial Remnant Stronghold, 7 ABY. Attention citizens, it is now 1800 hours standard, Imperial time. All citizens are required to be in their home or designated job sites until 900 hours tomorrow morning. Any non-authorized personnel will be detained for questioning, spoke the voice of a watchguard overseeing the grid of the large city with a thick, rust-colored command tower overlooking the apartments and pearly paved streets that ran through the city in a perfect format of flat efficiency. The city was a well-timed and booming location, even under the pressures of the New Republic. Bastion was every bit as imperial as Coruscant had once been. The poor had been eliminated. There was no room for bottom feeders. Outlawed by penalty of death, everyone on Bastion worked hard to survive. This nomenclature was quite literal here. But such a strict work code made the population thrive and focus on operational efficiency. General Emal Stromkar oversaw the operations of hard-working Imperials who examined the streets. Grids of advanced sensors and Imperial logistics predicted the movements of every citizen and their routes. Stromkar loved the interrogating rebels in his city. Few made it this far, but none had escaped his interrogation room without breaking. He knew every excuse before they could make it. Many put to death shortly after. The city had but one major weakness, a flaw. The grid required power generators dispersed throughout the city to maintain the laser scanners, the ID tags, and the signature tracers. Those engineers were damn good at their jobs, lest they wanted to face the iron wrath of their superiors for failing to maintain the system of harmony. Imperial patrols flew through the city searching for any sign of non-Imperial activity, easily spotted by thermal lenses mounted inside their helmets. To the commoner on the street, it was pitch black and very dark. Only the pearly white streets, reflecting the lights of the watchtowers, gave any sense of direction when the sun was setting or settled over the horizon. Sundown occurred approximately 1900 hours and didn't rise until 100 hours. Hyperspace, the Fury. The Fury-class Imperial interceptor. Luke was channeling the Force with piloting through hyperspace. The objective was to get the rusted bucket of bolts to Corellia, where they could safely get the ship repaired. R2 had panicked about this flight several times over indicating to Luke there were several dangers to the ship's status that would lead to self-destruction if they proceeded to fly through hyperspace. R2's self-preservation protocols made it very difficult to calm down and not scream with beeps and blurps. Luke had held his eyes closed and felt the controls of the ship and flew the ship blindly. He trusted the Force and not the computer navigation system. The ship began to rumble and rattle. The hyperspace tunnel would shift in color from an ocean blue into an amethyst purple. The wormhole would spiral into a hard curve, and so would the ship. Luke's concentration would strain, feeling a ripple through the space and time. A hyperspace jump in the past had caught up and fractured the hyperspace jump in the present. Whatever was passing through, both vessels seemed to miss each other, or even pass through one another. Another had those speeds. I don't even know what I wrote. But it must have been a powerful event to knock the trajectory and computer systems. Luke could feel the ship groaning as its hull began to tear. He cleared his throat and diverted his piloting skills to the ship's hull. His hands could feel the ship as he ran his fingers over the hull to feel the breaches forming. He gently massaged the metal, and from the outside, encouraging the molecules to bond together and hold their form. The force surrounding their hyperjump began to flood into the Fury's stabilizer core, giving them even more stability. These readings threw R2 for a cycle of confusion and disbelief. When the Fury dropped out of hyperspace, the transport moaned and slowed down to see a beautiful planet that looked very much like Corellia. Luke opened his eyes to experience the sight of the computer readings. The computer readings would indicate it was unknown space with an unknown designation for the planet in the system. Okay, so that was story number 1. That's with Luke and Ezra Bridger from Rebels, Star Wars Rebels. I didn't mark down when I started reading. I should, if I do that. Luke Skywalker at 1 hour and 6 minutes. All right. And then this will be the last one. It's the last one I read, and probably wrap up the stream, unless I get people who want to ask me questions or talk. Let's make this bigger for me so I can read it. The space over Dantooine would seem calm as the New Republic branched out to the Outer Rim for expanding their territory for security. The backwater planet was quiet as most settlements were small and no one organization fought for power over a grain-rich planet with a few benefits otherwise. This remote planet was the perfect location for the Imperial operations, the Warren, a code name where the Emperor would send dissonants, an exotic specimen for experimentation under Imperial scientists' watchful eye. The starfighter cruised through the sector with ease. The pilot, Jev Tino, his eyes looking at the beautiful solar star in front of him before a whistle came into his headset. Tino, find anything? The dispatch spoke to him from the mothership, a freighter scavenging for minerals. Metroa 6 here. I'm picking up several amosite and chisite deposits that are worth checking out. And the scanners would begin beeping along a low howl from the planet. Galativore. I'm picking up something on my scope. It seems like a distress signal. Permission to investigate? Metro 6, we're not picking up anything on our end. Check your readings. Sliding his tongue across his lips, he tapped his computer display and then turned off the instruments to turn them back on. Affirmative, Galativore. Systems are confirming some kind of distress signal. It's coming from the planet. I'm going to check it out. Might be Farmer's broken down tri-engine. Roger, report back at 200. In minutes, Jev would land his starfighter as he drew closer to the distress signal. It got louder in his ship until finally he was right on top of it. They knew he was coming, even if they didn't respond his several hailing attempts. He walked a few kilometers on foot to the location that seemed to be a structure in a single building in the middle of an open plain. He arrived at the door and saw it was already sliced open, at least a few years ago. He could smell trying to read my own writing. Holy shit. He could smell smoke and low hum of weakening power. God, terrible writing. Through the place, Jev furrowed his eyebrows with confusion, as it was a mystery to solve. Carefully, he walked down a long ramp into the darkness. The roar of Luke's Jumpmaster 1000 engines echoed behind the ship as it cruised through space. Its bulb-like cockpit and shuttle-like design made it a low profile for missions like this. Several beeps and blurps resonated from R2's soundboard. Do you wish for me to scan for anything in particular? As Luke would understand the droid's words through the translator on his heads-up display. If you could give me a geological scan, that would be helpful, Luke said. Do you think we'll find anything new since the last time we were here? R2 had said. Luke smirked. Every planet is a big place, R2. I'm just trusting the Force. A distress signal would howl on the display, prompting the Jedi Knight to flip through his instruments. R2, boost power to the scanners. That looks like a distress signal. Where? A few beeps came in from the droid. Sector 6-8, location -555, -3825. I do not pick up any distress signals, but I do pick up several life forms in that area. Luke thought the circumstances were odd. There must have been interference with R2's scanners and the shuttle. Luke closed his eyes and allowed the Force to guide him. Luke's gaze would open as he felt life, pain, and sorrow. A soft voice cried, "Help me." And Luke's heart ached. I'm taking us in. Master Skywalker, I'm detecting several Grawler in the area. Do you think we'll be safe? We'll be fine with them, R2. Worry about recalibrating the sensors. Last thing we need to do is mistake a rock for a smooth surface. Yes, sir, the droid beeped dutifully. I'm bringing us down only a few kilometers from the beacon. Luke looked over his instruments. Huh? It stopped. What stopped? The distress signal? R2 asked curiously. Yep. I'm going to have to go off my instincts on this one. Landing soon after the ramp to the shuttle would... Landing soon. After the ramp to the shuttle would allow for R2 and Luke to step out into the beautiful meadow with a few trees concealing the ship's location. So that one was a little bit rough. That had some rough language there. But that was one actually I'm surprised as I'm reading through this. I actually had a pretty good run with this player. This Mara Jade player. But yeah. So there was some of my story writing. I don't know if I'll do more of it. You guys can tell me if you want me to do some more reading of my work, and question me, ask me what you think of some of my ideas. If some of them sound fascinating, or if you want to know more about them. But I think right there is a good place to end. So thank you for tuning in. If you're listening to this in the future, thank you. Please like, share, subscribe. And I look forward to actually engaging and talking with anyone about any of this stuff. May the fourth be with you, and may the force be with you always.